I previously made a video about Deadlock and the manipulation of motivators that game developers use to artificially inflate and sustain their player bases, but the topic brushed against a larger, more complex topic, monetization. While these concepts are joined at the hip, monetization and motivation are not the same thing. While motivator mechanics have increasingly been the primary vehicle for monetizing live service games, this has not always been the case. Back in the day, and by that I mean about 15 years ago, online games were monetized at the door. You paid a fixed price for the game and maybe a monthly online subscription. This model was arguably less exploitative, but occasionally more expensive for the average player, as new entries in each series were released frequently, and to access the sort of new content contemporary games released periodically for free, you had to buy the annual $60 release. Call of Duty is basically the only game still trying to do this, while also being a pioneer of the new $70 price tag, while leaning on all of the monetization gimmicks that free-to-play games use. All of this at the same time they're outsourcing asset creation to generative AI to cut costs and increase revenues from their shrinking player base as much as humanly possible. The problem here is that the process of monetizing extrinsic motivation mechanics like battle passes is strictly designed around a free-to-play ecosystem. It doesn't cost you anything to play the game itself, but content, cosmetics, and personal progression elements are locked behind a paywall. The free-to-play experience becomes a stripped-down diet option, and to really get the true experience, you have to spend at least a little bit of money. These systems go from manipulative at worst to blatantly hostile when games that you already paid for begin hiding content and progression mechanics behind secondary paywalls. The most absurd offender here is probably Dead by Daylight. Since its release, the base game has cost $20 as its base market price. Initially, new periodic content was released behind individual paywalls. To play the new Survivor and Killer in each chapter, you had to pay $5 or $8, depending on the contents. This starts to get pretty expensive, as the game has kept continuously adding new content like this for the past 10 years. But the real problem started when they added a premium currency and cosmetic shop. On top of a game with a fixed price tag and frequent premium DLC, charging for skins that cost as much as the base game felt excessive. Then Fortnite came along and every single live service game was mandated by corporate shareholder decree to have a battle pass, and they tacked that on too. Currently, getting all of the DLC content for this game will run you a modest $337.66, and that's before you pay for your premium battle pass subscription and cosmetic purchases. This is so hideously cruel and unsustainable, it makes me worry about both the players and the developers, wrapped up in this strange, abusive relationship masquerading as a game. Despite this, there are a few examples of games that have managed to synergize an initial payment model with a premium DLC cycle that doesn't feel exploitative. My favorite personal example is Sony's new Star Child, Helldivers 2. The game retails for $40 and has been releasing $10 war bonds that add new weapons, cosmetics, and stratagem abilities every few months since the game launched. Now if you're paying attention, you'll notice that's double the cost for the DLC and the base game, and there's still a premium currency and cosmetic shop in this game too. So why is Helldivers a different story? That's because the premium currency, super credits, which is used to unlock all of the paid DLC and premium cosmetic items, can be acquired through regular gameplay. If you play this game every day, or go out of your way to farm super credits, you can completely circumvent any extra payments. The drop rates aren't outstanding, and if you're gainfully employed or don't play the game that often, it's probably a more valuable use of your lifespan to just spend the $10, but the game offers you a choice. Absolutely none of its content is permanently locked behind supplementary payments or arbitrary time barriers. Even if the game would prefer if you just spent money for your super credits, it never deprives you of the choice not to. This is especially important for ethical reasons when you consider that children make up a sizable market share for the games industry. While it might be a bit ridiculous for a grown man with a salary to spend 3 hours farming level 1 missions to circumvent a $10 purchase, it's a sensible course of action for a teenager with no income and only a meager allowance to spend on video games. This helps illustrate the true dysfunction at the core of game monetization that makes it so unpopular with customers. Nobody wants to feel a sense of obligation towards what's supposed to be their relaxing hobby. Nobody wants to waste a weekend playing a game they're feeling burnt out on because they'll miss their battle pass rewards if they don't. Nobody wants to pause their vacation to finish their gacha dailies. Nobody wants to pay a bunch of money to keep playing a game they already bought. Even the players who do these things don't want to, but there's an elaborate web of psychological tricks employed against them. This brings us back to Deadlock. Deadlock's developer, Valve, is responsible for perhaps the most interesting, unique, and both legally and ethically dubious game monetization system ever produced, the crate economy. While loot box gambling is not unique to Valve, there's nobody else whose loot boxes give you items that maintain real-world currency value and can quickly be exchanged for Steam wallet funds on the community market. There are CS and TF2 items you can hold real, substantial equity in. There are complex, dynamic market mechanics at work in these free-to-play computer games, and real money flowing around the world in the form of shiny AK-47s and funny hats. Is the crate and key system fun, well integrated into the gameplay loop, and non-manipulative? Well, it's kind of fun sometimes when you win. We're talking about a casino tacked onto the side of the game where the default outcome is just losing all of the money you put in immediately. Calling it a slot machine is generous because no casino could operate a slot machine with the levels of lost returns you get from crate gambling. The singular shining virtue of this system is the ability to accrue and hold monetary value in your digital items. It was like NFTs, but a decade earlier and somehow more tangible. This system is currently a legal liability to Valve, and recently they've been experimenting with abstractions of their tried and true monetization scheme in CS, which leads me to believe crates and keys probably won't be the direction for Deadlock, or at least not the focal point. The big problem is that the crate and key system has only a loose connection to game progress. In TF2 and CS alike, crates are received as drops for playing the game for a certain amount of time, but once you have them, you're done. They're now either an item to sell on the market, or a scratch ticket to burn $2.50 on. Collecting cosmetics can be fun, but the status they bestow on the player is just a demonstration of their financial investment, not their level of familiarity with the game itself. The guy with the $70 AK skin is often the weakest link on the team. Probably the biggest problem with these virtual economies, legally and in terms of motivation, is that the rewards need to be randomized for it to work. The value that each item carries is entirely dependent on the higher value items being harder to get, and on the majority percentage of crate rolls ending in a loss of value. You can't have thriving trading markets without that system of chance, since the sale value of each item is relative to the potential risk of just attempting to unbox it yourself. Even if a hypothetical Deadlock monetization scheme were to structure item drops around something like CS's Arsenal Pass system, or a more conventional Battle Pass, it would still be impossible to have that virtual economy without the sort of gambling mechanics that currently have them in hot water. I think the other obstacle to such a scheme to consider here is just the sheer number of characters in Deadlock. Deadlock has 38 playable heroes as of now. CS's current rotation of crates generally have 17 items in their prize pool, so unless a majority of cosmetics in each crate were universal or applicable to multiple heroes, which would be limiting on what they could do aesthetically, a crate could not contain items for more than half the cast with that same prize pool. While you could probably overcome this problem and several others with time and sheer volume, the simple fact is that the game itself does not synergize with the crate and key system as well as Counterstrike and TF2 have managed. Now this is Deadlock we're talking about. This is the game that tricked half of my friends list into playing a MOBA in 2026, so as far as I'm concerned, miracles and magic do exist. If Valve wants the kids to gamble, they'll find a way to let the kids gamble. They might even find a way to make it so cool and so fun you wouldn't even care about the ethical concerns. Worst comes to worst, an entire generation of children get two-shotted by a gambling addiction and a MOBA habit at the same time, God help us all. Now I have nothing concrete to say here because all of the speculation about monetization comes from data mining and no official announcement from Valve himself. I can doommonger until the cows come home about Letitia James destroying Valve with her right hand or this game being terrible somehow when they add monetization, but your guess is as good as mine. Against all odds, I'm still having fun with Deadlock, so for the time being, I'm going to lean to the side of optimism and say that they're probably going to do a good job, because that's what they've been doing so far, right?